So I think this change that Ten Hag made in the second half was the catalyst for United's whole victory. And despite United struggling probably for the first hour of this game, there were two specific ball progression tactics that I think could really take United's attacking play to the next level. And in the next few days I am planning to release more in-depth analysis videos on those two, so make sure you subscribe to the channel and click the bell so you get notified when those come out. But before I go any further, let me tell you about the sponsor of today's video, OneFootball, which has become my favourite football app because it has everything you need to keep up to date with the latest news and transfers, providing you with articles to read as well as videos to watch, whilst also being excellent for keeping up to date with all the matches from across the world that are going on, providing a live ticker as well as match ratings and statistics, whilst also allowing you to check your team stats from across the whole season. If you're sick of having to use Google and Twitter to search for news and stats that you want to see, then the OneFootball app is definitely the app for you, so I'll leave it linked in the description below, and by downloading the app you will be helping to support the channel. So in the build up to Garnacho's winning goal, we can see there's a series of headers in the middle of United's half, and to be honest, at this stage of the game you would have expected West Ham to maybe be a bit more conservative. You can see how many players they've pushed forward, and so what this means is that when the ball eventually drops for Casemiro, there's a lot of space around Declan Rice in the centre of the pitch for United to exploit. And this is exactly what happens. The ball goes into Weghorst, and to be honest he could probably turn with the ball, he has that much space behind him, but as he usually does he opts to lay the ball off of his back to goal, moving it on to Dalot, and because pretty much the whole West Ham midfield line apart from Declan Rice had pushed forward ahead of the ball, United have a massive amount of space down the right side to carry the ball forward, but also because Bruno Fernandes and Dalot are both on that side, Emerson can't move out to close down Dalot as he's got to track the run of Bruno Fernandes. But what happens is because Fernandes knows he hasn't got the pace to run in behind Emerson, he checks his run, which gives him a bit of space, and Dalot's able to feed the pass into him and look for the overlapping run. And so this forces Emerson to drop off from Fernandes, giving him the space to get the ball out of his feet and look for a cross to find Marcus Rashford. But to be honest, the cross isn't really that good. It doesn't clear the first West Ham centre-back, but Agard, who made a number of sloppy mistakes throughout the second half, including the own goal for the equaliser, just completely hashes at the clearance, puts it into the path of Weghorst. But from here, after Weghorst's shot is blocked, it's all about the individual brilliance of Garnacho. Now what I really like about this goal, other than the shot of course, is the actual setup. Because as the ball is falling out of the air, Garnacho has the awareness to realise that he's already standing in the prime shooting position in order to curl the ball into the far corner. And so when he does take a touch, he's going to be moving the ball about a yard ahead, which is slightly going to narrow his shooting angle, making it harder for him to curl the ball into the far corner. And so what he does is he touches the ball down, but rather than touching the ball down and then moving onto the ball, what he actually does is he brings it down and shuffles backwards, which allows him to bring the ball down on the spot where he was standing. And now he can move on to the ball at the optimal shooting angle to bend the ball around the West Ham player, curling the ball seductively into the far corner past Areola, giving United the victory. So until about the 60th minute of this match, I thought United did struggle in possession. But right at the start of the match, the main thing that United had problems with was moving the ball out of their defensive third. When United had the ball in their own box, starting with either Lindelof or De Gea, they are obviously starting in that default 2-3-2-3 shape. But West Ham weren't pressing them overly aggressively, they were sitting high in a 4-2-3-1, but they were looking to assert a trigger press when it was necessary. And this basically consisted of allowing the ball to be moved to Maguire or Lindelof, before Souček and Antonio would look to engage them as a front two, with the two wide midfielders Fornals on the right and Benrahma on the left sitting high in close proximity to the front two, looking to press the fullbacks when the ball went out to them. And Antonio and Souček did a very good job of cutting the passing lanes into McTominay behind them. And so with Maguire and Lindelof lacking passing options, this invited the press and West Ham were able to squeeze up, forcing them into a rushed forward pass or going back to David De Gea, which is exactly what West Ham wanted, as this would force De Gea into a long kick, which most of the time, because he's long passing isn't his best attribute, would allow West Ham to compete for an aerial duel, and the majority of the time in the first half they would win the ball back in United's half. But because West Ham aren't really a counter-pressing side who are going to press aggressively, who look to set pressing traps for certain players, and then attack immediately through the centre of the pitch when the ball is won, we didn't see them really able to cause United any defensive issues from any of these counter-pressing situations. And so United, the majority of the time, were able to get out of their defensive third, and a lot of the game was played in the middle third with United in possession, with West Ham dropping off into an extremely vertically compact 4-2-3-1 shape which resembled a 4-5-1 at times. And then obviously from here we would see United shift into that 3-1-6 shape that we often see them use. And in this game it came about with Dalot dropping deep, creating a back three with Maguire and Lindelof with McTominay in front. And then because it's Garnacho and Antony who hold the width on the flanks, this allows Malacia to invert in field. And then alongside him there's two others, Sabitzer, Fernandes or Weghorst, dropping off between the lines. And from here, United are looking to move the ball from the deeper players in the back three and McTominay into one of these four in behind West Ham's midfield. However, obviously that's easier said than done because West Ham were using a very narrow midfield four, and they were very effective at stopping progression not just into the players between the lines, but also into the likes of McTominay and Malacia in front of West Ham's midfield four, with Souček and Antonio sitting close together. And so we did see Lindelof and Maguire have a lot of possession in the middle third, essentially trying to thread a needle to get the ball between the lines. But I think the main reason why United struggled in the first half and even up until the 60th minute mark was firstly because they didn't have Casemiro in that regista single pivot position in front of the back three. And whilst I was impressed with McTominay in certain phases of play, particularly his ability to drive forward with the ball through the centre of the pitch, as well as his ability to keep possession but also recover possession higher up the pitch as well, I just don't think he's suited to that deep regista role. And this is because whilst I definitely think his ability to find forward passes to those United players in behind the opposition's midfield has definitely improved, and there were a few examples of this in this game, I just don't think he's as good as what United need in congested areas, being able to move the ball quickly with short sharp passes, able to work the ball around the press. And I also don't think he opens up passing lanes as much as he probably should in this position. I felt like he was sitting behind Souček and Antonio too much, closing off his own passing lane, when if he drops off to either side and opens up his body, he can potentially receive the ball off of one of the centre backs, which is what is needed from a player in this single pivot position to allow United to progress the ball beyond the opposition's front line. I actually think McTominay would be much better in the Sabitzer role, pushing higher up the pitch, where he doesn't have this sort of burden on him in possession. And I also think this would enable him to utilise his ability to drive forward with the ball when there's a turnover, being able to break past the opposition's midfield line. And it would also mean he's higher up in the press, which I think would enable him to utilise his energy and ball winning ability a lot better. But the problem I think that Ten Hag has with this squad is that Sabitzer, Fred and McTominay all suit this role a lot better, and none of them are really what United need from a deep single pivot position, which means when Casemiro isn't playing, combined with Eriksen's absence, we see United really struggle to progress the ball into the final third in central positions. But there were two methods that United used in order to progress the ball through the centre of the pitch. I didn't think they did either of these enough, but we did see glimpses in the first half. And the first is something we see United do a lot with Weghorst in the side, and it's what I like to refer to as the wall bounce, and it's essentially when you have one of the centre backs or deep line midfielders on the ball. In this game it was mostly Maguire who then threads the pass through the West Ham system, and Weghorst drops off from the forward line, and I legitimately think he's one of the best in Europe at doing this, where he's either able to get the ball under control quickly and lay it off, or flick the ball first time into one of the United players between the lines. And so it's almost like in order to get the ball from Maguire into one of Sabitzer or Fernandes between the lines, Maguire is essentially bouncing the ball off the wall, which is Weghorst, into one of the players between the lines, and now United are able to get the ball from in front of the West Ham system to in behind the midfield into the final third. Another method which we haven't seen United do as much, and we really only saw a couple of times in this game, and something I've also seen the likes of Barcelona, City and Arsenal also do, is what I'm going to refer to as the third man on the wing. And essentially what this is as the name suggests, just getting a third man to drop off into a wide position. And this is done in order to open up a passing lane and allow the ball to be moved from in front of the opposition system, and then looking to play the ball back inside into a central position. And this is a ball progression method which I'm starting to think is actually incredibly effective, and is actually pretty underused at the moment. But the logic is actually quite simple. So if we take United for example, they're usually going to have one, maybe two players sitting on the flanks. In this game we saw maybe Dalot dropping into a wide position in a back three, with Antony then sitting high on the right flank. But it's quite hard for United to funnel the ball into these players and have them progress it forward, because the opposition, in this case West Ham, are also going to have one or two players to match United's one or two players on the flanks. However, what United can do, and did a few times in this game, is have Dalot in a deep position, which obviously drags Benrahma higher up the pitch, and then Antony remains high and wide, keeping Emerson backwards, and so there's a massive gap between Emerson and Benrahma, and this is where you have one of the central midfielders, usually Bruno Fernandes on that side, drift out into a wide position. And the beauty of this is it gives United a 3v2 overload on the right side, and this is because obviously Bruno Fernandes is a central midfielder, so the opposition's central midfielder, which was Declan Rice in this game, is going to be the man tasked with man-to-man pressing him. And so if Fernandes pushes up the pitch, you're going to see Rice drop with him, but then if Bruno drops deep to open up a passing lane from one of the centre backs and get on the ball, Rice can just push up onto him and squeeze him there as well. However, when Bruno Fernandes pulls out into a wide position, Rice can't follow him as it would drag him completely out of the central midfield and leave a massive space alongside Paqueta for one of Weghorst or Sabitzer to drop into. And so most of the time, unless the opposition is going to go with a strict man-to-man pressing system, which we really only see from managers like Marcel Bielsa, and in which case is a bit chaotic, most of the time the opposition central midfielder is not going to follow Bruno Fernandes into one of these wide positions, instead preferring to hold a central position to keep the overall structure of the opposition's defensive shape. And so what United can do, as they did in this game, is move the ball out to Dalot. Benrahma looks to press him, but because Antony's holding his width high and wide on the right flank, Emerson can't push out to narrow that space between him and Benrahma, allowing Bruno Fernandes to drop in that space. Dalot plays the ball into him, and now Fernandes is able to receive the ball and turn in space. And from here, because West Ham are using a front two that were cutting the passing lanes in front of McTominay, neither of them are tight to him, and so he's able to run off them, opening up a passing lane from where Bruno Fernandes has the angle to play the ball back inside to him. And now McTominay's receiving the ball in space in front of the West Ham midfield line, and he's able to switch the ball out to Garnacho. And now, from utilising the third man on the flank, United have gone from having possession in front of West Ham's whole defensive shape to now having the ball with Garnacho in a 1v1 in the final third. Now, as the game went on, United were gradually being able to progress the ball higher and higher up the pitch and sustaining attacks in the West Ham half. And whilst this was because West Ham's press was naturally subsiding and they began to retreat further and further, it was also due to Ten Hag moving Marcus Rashford into a centre forward position, as now United had genuine pace in behind the West Ham back line, and this led to Ogbonna and Agard dropping off deeper, making the West Ham defensive shape less vertically compact, opening up space between the lines for United to progress the ball into the likes of Bruno Fernandes, Weghorst, who was playing more as a conventional central attacking midfielder, as well as Fred later on in the game as well. And I think this one change was the key to United winning this game, as it allowed them to sustain attacks in the West Ham half, and after they got the equaliser from Agard's own goal, it became almost an inevitability that United would win this game. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed that video, you can check out some of my other match analysis videos, which I'll leave in a playlist linked in the description, along with some other videos I think you may enjoy as well. And also remember to give the video a like, subscribe to the channel and click the bell so you do get notified when my videos come out.